can do. RNG are your nightmare.
Set it off like this. Set it off like set it off like this. Burn it up, burn it up.
2022 in Busan, South Korea. Now it is finally time for the Rumble stage where the 6 best teams from groups will fight for a ticket to the knockout stage across the next 5 days. Here we see G2 making their way into the arena as they're going to go up against T1, who we see here as well, stepping into the convention center, the new venue for the Rumble stage out there in Busan, South Korea. Hello, everybody. I am Dash, and I'm joined today by Chronicler and Emily Rand. Emily, it's always good to see you. Chronicler in the flesh.
He's escaped.
I'm here. Oh my goodness.
He's not trapped in the desk anymore.
It's a lagless Chronicler. It's going to be so nice.
I was there, and now I'm here, and I can actually talk to you. I can see all of you.
I'm super pumped to have you here with us. I'm super pumped to be getting into the Rumble stage, but of course, in order to do so, we have to reflect and take a look at how things broke down in the group stages just a couple of days ago. We're going to take a look at the final group stage standings from the two of you. What are your quick thoughts here?
Not a lot of surprises, which I think we were all hoping for. Unfortunately, when you look at the top of those standings, G2 undefeated, RNG undefeated, T1 undefeated, and I'd argue second places is just the same. A little bit more losses, but everyone that you expected to make it was actually able to get through. The only one, of course, that Saigon Buffalo DFM.
Yeah, and those, like, not so coincidentally, were, in my opinion, the most entertaining games we had from the group stage. Otherwise, there was a severe lack of parity, let's just say.
A lot of things going to chalk or to expectation. Of course, as you mentioned, the 3 undefeated teams up there as kind of the pool ones coming into the Rumble stage. No surprise there. A lot of history, though, as well, that exists not only between those teams, but with those teams and this tournament, specifically MSI.
Yeah, we have 3 previous MSI winners. They all happen to be undefeated at this tournament thus far. So I mean, that's a really cool storyline already to set up going into Rumble stage.
Won't be the case for long, though, as of course a number of those teams are going to go up against each other today. But a quick refresher, as T1, RNG, and G2 are 3 of the 4 teams that have historically hoisted this MSI trophy. The only other team to do so, EDG, all the way back in 2015. Obviously, can't have 2 LPL teams here.
And the way that it went, with T1, pretty early in spring, we had a big notion that they might be really good, that they might make it to MSI. But when it comes to G2, when it comes to RNG, seeing the teams make it, kind of seeming, was really, really cool.
But if we jump down from these kind of top echelon of teams to the next pack, Emily, I'm looking at the VCS. The VCS is back!
They are, and they're so fun. I miss them so much. Honestly, it's really sad because I think once COVID hit, that was actually rise for the VCS when you saw them starting to perform on an international stage starting in 2017 with Gigabyte Marines, now GAM Esports. And now, I mean, I think a lot of people are sleeping on Saigon Buffalo because they are the 2nd seed from the VCS. GAM Esports is currently attending the Southeast Asian Games. They actually played earlier this morning. So yeah, I mean, Saigon were, in my opinion, the most fun team to watch in the group stage.
And it's hard because they came back after such a long time. So seeing them actually live up to the high expectations that we had for them and immediately double kill Carrie and Gamushi, it hurt me. I'm not gonna lie, but it was really exciting at the same time.
Well, and like talking to the VCS English crew, in the doc they kind of prepped. They were like, yeah, you will not think anything has changed since the last time you saw VCS. They're still just as scrappy, and SGB of those teams is the bloodiest. So it was just so much fun to see them come out and have the showing they did.
I mean, that's great. That's exactly what we want out of the VCS, right? That is regional identity at this point, and it's very cool to continue to see teams live up to that regional identity. From the Saigon Buffaloes, we are going to jump over to the North American squad in Evil Geniuses. A 4-4 group stage, losing all of their matchups to G2 and winning all of their matchups against Order. In some senses, makes it feel like it's a tough team to evaluate, Chronicler, because of that. But by the same token, I think there's just going to be a whole bunch of questions about what honestly did they take away from that group stage experience to bring into this 6-team pool?
Because while it was on one hand, to me and to everyone, pretty clear that EG wasn't actually able to consistently match, I think we did see clear improvements. I think Jojo Pion was slowly able to handle the pressure a lot better. And if Danny and Vulcan can get rid of some of those bot lane snafus, they're probably going to be in a good spot.
I have some bad news for you because that also characterized their playoff run a little bit. But I think the big thing with this EG team to remember is that they didn't have the strongest showing in the regular season either, right? It was really only in playoffs where talking to them, they were like, we were able to look at our mistakes in the season. We were finally able to translate what we'd been seeing in scrims to stage, and then additionally have good draft prep going into their teams. So now, because I don't think their draft prep was nearly as good, let's just say.
Looking at you, game 1 versus G2.
Yeah, we're going to see how they learn from those losses.
Yeah.
Hey, that Nivea pick was sick from G2.
It was amazing to see. I was obviously at home in North America, and as soon as that pick got locked in, I was like, this one's done. Go next, right? So we'll see what they've learned, because you're right. That was a big characteristic of their run, particularly their uptick in playoffs in North America, was their ability to adjust, from week to week, game to game. And so we'll see if they can do just that. That leaves us with PSG as the final team here that's made it into the Rumble stage.
And unfortunately, there's always going to be a worse team. And the expectations is that it is PSG. This was already kind of hinted with the struggle that they've had domestically, whereas they've always been so incredibly strong in every single facet within their own region. And a lot of it does come down to my opinion, Bay and Juhan. Bay has had not the best LCK career, was an LCK, got replaced by Gory, sent down the challengers, got replaced by Fiesta. And I do think that what we've seen from him this tournament thus far has been improvement, but improvement is not enough for Rumble.
I mean, it's a tough spot. They're filling big shoes there over on PSG Talon. A mainstay of the international stage as a team, but with a couple new faces, we're going to have to see if they can pull something amazing out here in the Rumble stage. Speaking of amazing, we've seen a lot of amazing plays throughout that first stage of MSI 2022. Let's go ahead and have a look back at the outstanding highlights from the group stage.
But the response from Inspired was good, mainly because you're getting so much gold on Titani. A bit of trading now in the mid lane.
Caps does have Ignite here. Jojo already burned the TP. Vulcan here in time to save his mid laner. Sun card comes out. Abyssal Voyage. Caps flashes forward with the Ignite ticking. Caps takes it. The tower will not shoot. The tongue will not lash. Here is Inspired just in time. Caps still trying to dodge away. He gets to the other side. Vulcan flash, tongue lash. Give him a licking in the bushes. Inspired continues to chase.
Oh my god! Caps just broke Jojo's ankles.
Don't expect us to play nice. We got plans to take every record home.
Their ultimates, except for on the LeBlanc.
They know he's there. They know he's alone. Jumped in. Dragon down. He's got Mega and the 9 to the wall. PSG, can you answer? Long range Moonlight Vigil. PSG pounce. Ferret down. Farfetch next to Bolo. You have to feel he'll fall. Holy Phoenix, no escape. Starscream, the last man standing, but not for much longer. PSG with the X.
Time. Get out the way, we coming through.
Again from Carrier is fantastic. And T1 used this Baron to force a team fight Saigon Buffalo didn't want to take.
Not sure what's going on here. Baker with red buff just says, I've got exhaust as well because I have unsealed spellbook, and yeah, I think I'll just take the kill.
Yeah, all emotions aside. There's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide. How you gonna play when the game on the line?
Have the flash test. We don't got time for this. Captain Sleepy does have his onions back up though. A lot of damage with Caps. Gonna steal the Lily ulti, get a counter sleep, and it's not enough. Caps finally gonna go down. And then back dies. You are kidding me, Caps. You are absolutely absurd, ridiculous, insane, sightless play. Caps is still alive as Inspired finally gets a shutdown.
How you gonna play when the game on the line? Came for the dirt, but it ain't no shame. Had to put the work in, grind day by day. All the blood, sweat, tears, no pain, no gain. I was ready for the moment and it came my way.
Give him enough time for the States to wear up and get the kill. Obviously, they give Xiaohu time to walk forward and kill you anyway, so it was always going to be a trade, but a dragon fight has started. Third dragon available here for RNG. Jojo again in trouble. He's going to go down to Gala, and now Gala's going to keep on going. Big with the wraparound, but KI over the top, and that's 2 kills for Waves. The dragon is one of them. Gala going to pick up yet another kill. It's a double. It's a triple. Is it a quadra? Is it a penta? Gala's going to get it again. The penta kill for Gala.
Oh, Gala popping off on the Kai'Sa. One of the signature picks for him here.
Start meditating, yeah, we coming for you, no hesitation.
BJ has got that proto rocket belt, looking at coming from the side, but Harp is able to tag him so well. He's pulled in to Froggy as Envy's getting low, but Steel is in the back line. He takes out Froggy, and now a huge re-engage does come in from Taki and BJ. They create the front line as now Shogun and Hazmed are going wild in the backside of this fight. That is going to be the end of that as the triple comes in for the Kai'Sa.
This should be it. The dead timers are so long in Saigon Buffalo. They were struggling for such a long time, but they find the window.
The Saigon Buffalo pick up their 4th victory, and they move on to the Rumble stage.
Some incredible plays coming out of the group stage. Hopefully, many more to come in the Rumble stage. We had 36 total games played, though, in that group stage. And so really, I want to dive into the conversation of champions and meta. We're going to throw up onto the screen the 5 champions with the highest presence throughout the group stage. Talk about a few and maybe a couple others. Chronicler, what jumps out to you here? What do you want to talk about?
It's Gwen. Lucian is also there, but Lucian's just going to be banned.
He's
so
just
we
OP.
have to talk about Lucian because he's clearly incredibly strong. But we've only seen him in bot lane. And the problem with Gwen is that Gwen has been strong before. You know, she, after the E-nerfs and the range cut, she kind of disappeared for a little bit. But she is back as a flex pick, single-handedly raising the amount of immunes being said on the broadcast to
Gwen is immune.
dangerously high levels. And the combination of this pick being relatively hard to punish. We've seen some things like the Jax, but you do have to play to that a lot because it is still a relatively volatile matchup. And she's now flexible to mid, apparently, so you can just pick her early, and then even if you do get counterpicked, if the enemy expends draft resources, you just pivot her away.
Flex picks are so massive in pro play, right? And I love the apparently addendum that you put there because I think there's also probably a number of teams that are now going, oh, yeah, apparently. And a lot of international competition becomes about that adaptation. When one team proves that a pick is viable in a specific spot, everybody else now has to consider that viability, whether or not they should play it themselves, whether or not they should look to ban it, take it away, things like that. But obviously, Gwen going to be a high priority pick here throughout the Rumble stage. Emily, you've looked at 2 champions, though, that aren't necessarily in that top 5 of presence.
Yeah, so fun fact, before the entire tournament started, Chronicler and I and a few other analysts kind of picked like, ooh, who are might we see based on buffs on the patch? And Tristana, I'm going to shout out her first just because we're going to see Shogun pop off on her here, but we have Shogun, we have Gala is a known Tristana player, and also Danny. So I am wondering if we're going to continue to see Tristana kind of make her way into the bot lane meta, mainly just because we do have so many 80 carries here still left in the Rumble stage that just really like this pick. I know, Dash, you've seen Danny pop off on it famously. We've seen the Gala pentakill that kind of everyone knew him for from last year. And then Shogun, the Saigon Buffalo 80 carry, another like super young person at this tournament doing really well on that pick. The second pick that I'm going to talk about is actually the Zoe, which isn't something, again, that we've seen like super, super high prio on, but it was interesting to me because initially I highlighted this pick. We have a lot of mid laners that really like picking it. I wasn't sure how it was going to work on ping because the way you play with Zoe is you really want to play around fog, right? You absolutely need to hit your skill shots. But we've seen some really fantastic Zoe plays out of the group stage thus far. So one thing that's really curious to me about this pick specifically is that now with the teams being a little bit more even in skill, let's just say, I am wondering if teams are going to continue with the Zoe because we do have so many players that enjoy that pick. We have teams like T1 that are really great at playing with fog, at playing with poke. But the slightly higher ping actually does make a difference with a champion like this. So I'm very curious to see how her presence evolves in this tournament.
Zoe, the jump roping menace. I'm curious, though, because you mentioned with the teams perhaps being a bit closer in skill level, do you feel like that makes Zoe a more valuable pick if able to be executed on, or does it become a less valuable pick because of kind of the parity between teams?
I would say the former. If players feel comfortable enough still on the slightly higher ping that they're like, you know what, we can still execute this really well, then it's about, again, how is your team playing around fog? How are you setting up around neutral objectives so you're really getting the most out of Zoe's strength and being able to pick people off?
Well, we'll have our answers soon enough as we have our first day of Rumble stage action taking place in just a bit. We've got 6 games ahead of us. My questions are, well, I'm going to ask the question. I already know the answer. What is the matchup that is the most standout to you?
That's a hard one.
Right?
Yeah, it really threw me for a loop here.
Saigon versus T1, right? No. G2 T1, we're kicking it off with an absolute banger. Not to overlook the second matchup of the day where EG is going to get tested against RNG, but I think you look no further than that first matchup of the day.
G2's got a hard day ahead of them.
They do.
Even without it played. I think both those best of ones are also going to give us a much better idea of the relative power levels, because again, it's so hard to judge right now, and I can't wait.
They're all undefeated, right? So yeah, you're just waiting to see that first matchup to kind of see who will ultimately take it. Outside of that, though, of course, it is a full day of games, and I think that's where we start to ask questions about where do those surprises come in the best of one format. Yes, we've got some undefeated teams, but they can't all remain that way, and eventually we're going to start seeing some of those top teams maybe stumble a little bit. We're going to kick things off with a bang, though, as longtime rivals G2 Esports and T1 face off in our featured matchup presented by Mercedes-Benz.
SK Telecom, they are best team in the world.
G2's redemption is nice, but SKT going through the crucible of the mid-season invitational to lock it down as the best team in the world.
It's finally here. One of the greatest rivalries in League of Legends is about to play out on the international stage. G2 Esports eliminates SK Telecom. Although this year's G2 is very different from 2019, two key pieces still remain the same. Ever since being awakened by dropping down to the lower bracket in the spring playoffs, G2 have been devastating teams. Since then, they've not dropped a single game.
G2 claim their ninth title.
And this may seem impressive until you realize that T1 hasn't dropped a single series this entire year.
And that is going to be the ace into the hands of T1.
T1 have reclaimed the throne in the LCK and are now setting their sights on the international stage.
And now T1 are looking to end the group stage undefeated.
It feels like after years of waiting, we finally get to see these two titans of the East and the West clash at their full strength.
That's the smite on top of it. First blood Caps, the greatest team Europe has ever produced.
In our featured matchup presented by Mercedes-Benz, one of these teams will continue their domination and one will finally taste defeat.
An absolutely titanic matchup to kick things off today. No surprise, though, that the players over there on G2 are coming in with all kinds of fun energy. Broken Blade himself.
What was that?
What is that? What is that?
What are we doing here?
Are these guns? They're not close enough to be that? Caps? You gonna? Oh no! No! Is that no to FLICKR?
Yeah.
He's just like,
or
no to his teammates.
Going on here?
No idea what's going on here. But before we get into both of these teams today, we have to remember the fact that there's a lot of history that stands between these two organizations on the international stage, all the way back to 2019. I mean, a rematch from 2019 MSI and World Semi-Finals. Very rare that we get to say that an organization has a winning record and has gotten the better of T1 historically, Chronicler.
His face.
Yeah, you know that one.
You can see it now, but his face.
I gotta get in those punches.
You gotta get it
right?
in.
Yeah.
And it, as an LCK fan, of course, it's always gonna hurt. But to me, G2's rise after we already saw in 2018 that the LPL was actually able to match the LCK really marked the definitive end of the era of the LCK is the best and they're just going to beat everyone. And no matter who they face, they're always going to be the favorite. And the fact that they're still the same players to a certain extent is just mind-blowing.
Now, obviously, attached to that team record is going to be the individual record that exists between Caps and FLICKR. Caps with an 8-3 game record against FLICKR. I'm just exceptionally excited to see these two players go up against each other, both because of the history between them, but also because of the performance that Caps specifically has already put up in the group stage, Emily.
Yeah, I mean, part of that record is also just due to what Chronicler already talked about in terms. I'm so sad people couldn't just see your face fall as you were watching the highlights.
Drained
But yeah, I think the thing with Caps versus FLICKR here is that FLICKR is such a versatile player, and what he does for his team on the map, kind of spreading his pressure outwards, where the way that Jankos and Caps have been playing in tandem to really like get Caps ahead as kind of like, you know, the phalanx of their attack, and then have him spread his pressure that way, is a really interesting stylistic matchup for me to look at. Like, so it's less about like Caps versus FLICKR 1v1 and more about what they each do for their teams respectively.
I also love bringing in the rest of the team because, yes, FLICKR, Caps, those are mainstays. We've seen that matchup so many times. It's about the pieces around them. And specifically, I want to look at the T1 side, Chronicler, because a couple notable, very specific changes to this roster coming into this year, which have resulted in incredible success domestically and so far internationally. Help break it down, though, for us who maybe haven't seen the team from last international competition to now. What were those big changes?
So with FLICKR and Carry, we're always going to be in the roster. Gumiushi was decided pretty early, but the start of the current T1 that we see now was Owner coming in as the main jungler last split in summer in 2022, because he was the one that finally stabilized T1. Like, they had so much issues. If you're not aware, there was roster changes, there was coachings getting let go mid-split. It was just kind of a disaster, and it all culminated in this player who was the only one on this team to not make All-Pro, ended up behind Canyon, which you can't fault anyone for that, but then made Spring finals. He was the MVP as well. Like,
that feels good right there.
It really hit hard.
It was a great story, and watching his progression from when he started, especially through that Worlds run, was so impressive. And then, you know, being able to come into this season a much better player, I think it was kind of shadows of what we saw FLICKR do for his junglers previously. Like, T1 has this weird reputation of kind of like, you know, going through junglers a little bit, which is why like the story of Owner is just so great to me, because once again you see FLICKR and his prowess helping raise another rookie jungler, and Owner was, as you said, such a difference maker for this roster, and his rate of improvement from when he started to now is just so impressive.
That roster change alone would be a huge boon to any team across the world, but we also had another one, and we got to go up to the top lane to really seal the deal here for how good T1 is.
I apologize in advance. I got to gloat a little. I was calling for Zeus ever since he debuted in the LCK. He had an incredible amount of experience with how it looked, but that wasn't actually the case, because again, debut games within the LCK. And as well as T1 did last split, they were kind of hamstrung by Kana being a relatively one-dimensional player. He was really good at what he did, but you had to invest resources into him, and you had to get him specific picks. Whereas Zeus, he can do anything, and he plays like a player that has years of experience.
Yeah, and I think like Zeus coming in, Owner coming in, this entire roster is just so fun. Like previously, I think you look at T1, you're like, there's a lot of pressure in this organization, right? They are the Korean organization. And this team is actually so fun to watch, just like on camera, like goofing off. And additionally, in game, when we talk about how they play, we'll bring up a lot of the fact that they play so well around like early game timers, not just neutral objective timers, because they're actually really willing to like punt dragons for pressure elsewhere, but also just like, where's the cannon wave? When are we diving? When are we backing? All that simple stuff. But the thing that is so fun about this T1 team as well is they will opt into skill checking you. If they feel like it, they'll just go in. And that is like something that I haven't necessarily seen always of T1 teams in the past, and is a really fun facet of this T1 team now.
Oh, I love that you bring that up, because yes, when we recall the T1 dynasty, the era of T1 dominance, so much of it was just about like, this team is so solid and so good at playing the map that you'll never gain the advantages, and then they'll find the team fight. They'll find the one mistake and they'll beat you. This team, though, as you mentioned, we'll just take the 1v1s, and we'll just beat you out the gate.
They actually remind me of old G2. That's what G2 did in 2019. Like, that's the coolest thing.
Ooh, okay, I'm even more excited now. Let's flip on over to the G2 side of things, where Lore was able to catch up with their head coach, Dylan Falco. Check it out.
Dylan, thank you so much for joining me ahead of your game today. Let's talk about the group stage first, because you just finished it a couple days ago. How do you reflect on the performance for the teams in that stage? And also, what did you try to implement in the days you had between group stage and the Rumble today?
So obviously our group stage went quite well. I think coming out of that group stage, it was very obvious that there are three teams in this tournament that are doing very, very well. We took the group stage as an opportunity to try a lot of like aggressive drafting, I would say, and just kind of playing free and playing open. Whereas I think this stage is a lot more about trying to boil it down to what we feel like is our best chances to win, and play a bit more, let's just say, like try hard, because some of the teams in this group are very, very good.
Kind of reflects on what Targamas has been saying on Twitter with the confidence he was showing. This was maybe a warm-up for him. Talking about the bot lane, actually, I think it was a big question mark for G2, being their first international event. I think they performed really well, but what's your take on their improvements so far and what we've seen from them?
I'm so impressed, actually, with FLICKR and Targamas' performance so far since we came here to Korea. They've been working so hard and grinding so hard in solo queue and performing so well in both scrims and stage. As a coach, like, I don't know what to expect sometimes when you bring lesser experienced players onto the world stage, and sometimes it can be very hard because you're playing against different strategies and you need to be able to adapt very fast, but they're adapting so fast and playing very well.
I think it was Gumayoshi especially who was impressed with the way FLICKR was able to adapt depending on what the team needs. But let's focus on this matchup, because I think T1 versus G2 has to be one of the most anticipated matchup here in the Rumble stage. You guys both come undefeated. One won't be by the end of the game, but tell me more about the matchup, how you've been prepping for it, and maybe a couple words on Caps versus FLICKR, because we know he has a positive record against him.
Like G2 versus T1 is one of my favorite matchups of all time. I've never actually got to be a part of it, and now I am, so I'm really excited. I think T1 has to be one of the best teams in the world. For sure, we scrimmed against them quite a bit leading up to this match, and they're very strong. That being said, I think we know a lot about how they like to play. I think they like to play very fast, very aggressive. They really, really like enabling their bot lane, Gumayusi and Keria. So we're aware of that, and we've done a lot of preparation to try and come up with a strategy that we think will work for today.
All right, well, we'll keep our eyes on this for sure. Dylan, thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you.
Good luck against T1 today. And back to you guys in Berlin.
Thank you so much, Laure. We heard straight from Dylan Falco there, Chronicler, that they have done the research. They feel like they have figured out this T1 team, or at least have developed the strategies that give them the best opportunity to take them down. From your perspective, how does G2 get it done?
Especially at the end of groups, T1 had a number of errors slowly slip into their play. How much of that was also because they are very fun, but they're also young, so they get bored really quickly. And it kind of showcased with what Keria was doing at times. There have been instances where T1 back in the LCK would play extremely diligent and not really leave any openings with how they cover for lanes. And at MSI, they've been playing fast and loose, as Dylan Falco was saying. I don't think you can do that against G2.
Okay, all right. Maybe we gotta contain it a little bit, reel them all in just a bit. He also talked a little bit about his how impressed he has been, rather, with his bot lane's performance out here on the international stage. And very specifically, I want to dive into the support matchup. Targamas on one side, Keria on the other. But we got to talk about the Pyke pick. Because it has been played by both teams up to this point. We know that it's a favorite of G2.
Yeah.
Do we see it finding that kind of use here in this matchup today?
I mean, I still think G2 are going to be the team that heavily favored this pick over T1. Not that Keria can't play it, because as we're going to see here, he is also a phenomenal Pyke player and really likes, again, a lot of the scrappiness and the power that comes out of that pick. But I do think for teams, G2 are definitely the team that is going to focus on it a lot more. The other interesting thing about this support matchup, specifically around the Pyke pick that I'm going to be looking at, is the fact that Targamas will not only roam mid, but he also roams top a lot more frequently than Keria. So I am curious as to whether Keria would choose to match those roam timers or try to get his bot lane ahead.
Beat me to my question. I was about to say, if the Pyke does go the way of Targamas, you know, and you're in the T1 shoes, do you look to say, hey, now we're going to punish your bot lane, who you've chosen to leave, or we're going to match you, tit for tat on the roam?
T1's cross-map answers are the best out of any team in the LCK. I'd expect them to.
There you have it. By the way, a new episode of Riff Reaction released this week, recapping MSI 2022. Why are you laughing?
Because it's weird promoting my own stuff.
Well, I'm promoting it for you.
Thank you.
You can share your thoughts on Spotify in this week's poll. Will T1 drop a game in the Rumble stage? 14 seconds to go. Will they? Is it this one?
I don't think it will be this one.
It will not be
They'll
this
drop
one. Okay. Will they drop a game?
I'm in agreement. Yeah, they will drop a game, but I don't think it'll be this one. I think T1 really do want to come out and make like a statement victory here.
All righty, there you have it. We've got nothing left to do but to get there into the stadium. The stage is set for the epic battle between T1 and G2. So without further ado, let the MSI 22 Rumble stage begin.